Hello, my name is Paula, and I want to tell you a little bit about my journey and what's happened to me in this last year. So, as well as COVID and some, as you can imagine, if you look around you, I'm in Thailand, so I'm an expat. So, some working arrangements that were impacted because of COVID. I was also in quite a significant road accident. So what happened was I was on my way to work one morning on a motorcycle and a car hit me from the side. Not quite sure still why, but hit me from the side nonetheless, knocked me off the bike. I stayed conscious and remembered bouncing along the road with a helmet on, which is very lucky and very essential. And when I finally stopped bouncing and rolling, felt a bit dazed and thought, oh, I'm going to be late for work and I look a bit messy, and tried to stand up and I couldn't. So I thought my leg was a bit numb, or pins and needles, and I looked around to just to see what was going on, and I noticed that not only was it a bit bruised and pins and needly, there were both leg bones were sticking out the side of my leg, and my foot was in some very odd position, sort of bent upwards in the opposite direction. So it was at that point I realised this is not looking good. So luckily for me, police stopped, ambulance came, the lady who hit me in the car also stopped, and they got me to a local hospital. So what I ended up being told at the hospital was that I had a compound fracture, which was an open fracture. Both bones had snapped. Some bone fragments were missing, and the bones had come out my leg. So I went into surgery later that night, about 8 hours later. And when I came around from the operating theatre and was up in the hotel, or up in the hospital room, I had this big metal cage erected around my leg to stabilise the bones in the position that they needed to be in. So it was quite a shock that day. I really hadn't expected that. I don't think the significance of the injury had really impacted me at that point. My friends had told me that I was talking about being home in a couple of weeks, having them all up for dinner to thank them for helping me out that day. Getting my dogs back from the kennels, because my other friend had taken them there to make sure they were okay for the time I was in hospital. And I really hadn't reconciled in my head how serious the injury was. So I had 4 surgeries in total in the first month in hospital. I had infection, and they had to reopen the leg, and they also had to fix metal plates and 2 ankle hinges as well. So in total I have 2 metal rods going through my leg, 2 ankle hinges, and 25 screws holding the whole lot together. So it was quite serious and significant. In total I had 1 month in that hospital. Then I was transferred to another hospital for a further month. The wounds hadn't healed, so I still need regular nursing attention at least twice daily. I still had infections, although not as serious, so I was taking oral antibiotics instead of the IV antibiotics that they were giving me. And I needed a lot of care. And of course my mobility was next to nothing. I wasn't really able to move around. My leg was wrapped up in casts for quite a significant amount of time. So it took me about 2.5 months to finally get back home, instead of the 2 weeks that I'd initially thought. And when I got home here in Thailand, it had become rainy season. So where I live is very remote. I live by myself with 2 dogs, and I found it absolutely impossible to be able to take care of myself. I was there. My crutches would slip on wet tiles. I couldn't get across the grass to the house, so I couldn't get back and forward. I couldn't open my garden gate to get out. Obviously I couldn't drive myself anywhere, so I was very isolated and by myself, and I found that really difficult. I think that was the lowest point. Up to that point I could still, because I was getting so much support, I still felt a little bit of independence and autonomy, and I was able to do things. I was moving around, I was seeing people, I was even still working. I was taking myself to work every day on crutches. And trying to do the job that I was doing, even though I was in quite a bit of pain and my leg was going black on a daily basis. So things weren't good, and I finally realised that for the 2.5 weeks that I spent at home, that if I dropped something on the floor I couldn't pick it up. I couldn't go out to the bathroom that was outside across tiles in the wet. Sleeping was a bit of an issue because I couldn't really position my leg at night, so I couldn't sleep. I was on a lot of medications that made my head fuzzy, and I couldn't really have a clear sort of focus of what I was doing. Couldn't make myself a hot drink, couldn't carry a cold drink, couldn't cook for myself, couldn't shop for myself. I think it finally done. I had to come out of work at that point. I just couldn't keep going, and it really just hit me that this is serious, and I'm not getting any better. The wounds were still open. This was 2.5 months later, and they didn't show any sign of closing, although I was at home with a little medikit all by myself now, dressing them every day, cleaning them, just trying to get by. So my work colleague and friend Michael had suggested to me several times about living with the spirit. He was coming here to do some physical fitness and some holistic therapies, and he just kept telling me, you know, go and see these people. I'd met Sarah and Simba before they'd come to my place of work. I was really keen on having them come in and do some work to support me changing the environment for the clients that we had, so that it was more health orientated, more fitting with the clients that we had, and more holistic. So I knew that they did the work that they did. It just didn't occur to me that I would end up being a client one day. I was going to work with them professionally. So I came to see them one morning. I was very reluctant, but I was kind of at this point, I don't know what else to do. I'm really concerned that when I go to sleep each night and my leg is black and my foot won't move and I'm in pain and I'm waking up every night with pain, that I'm going to end up losing my leg, or at least the ability to walk. There was some talk about that being the outcome at the very start when I was first in hospital, and I thought I was past that. But clearly I wasn't. It came back. So Michael drove the whole way out to my home in Maytang, which is about an hour and 10, 15 minutes away from the city centre. Picked me up one morning and brought me down to meet Sarah and Simba. Like I say, I was not so much ambivalent, but I wasn't too keen on coming down and sort of being poked and prodded and talking about the injury again. I really just wanted things to be over, but clearly they weren't. So when I came down, explained to Sarah and Simba what had happened. They already had quite a bit of information. Michael was updating them quite often. Simba took a look at my leg, did a little bit of movement to try and get mobility, did a little bit of massage to try and get circulation. It immediately felt better just with somebody giving it some attention and starting to do something. I ended up crying. Most people who know me will know that's not generally what happens to me. I'm not a crier. Not saying anything against it, but I'm generally pretty robust. I know I'm usually very resilient, and I like to be independent, so this was a huge thing for me, that I felt none of those, and it was going on more than one day. It was going on for quite some time. So while I was sitting there feeling quite exposed and vulnerable and emotional, I was chatting to Sarah, and she offered to take me in and let me stay in Living with the Spirit, which also has a residential component. I hesitated for quite a bit because I really just wanted to go home and hide and be by myself and figure out what to do next. But I also knew that it wasn't going to work. I'd been there for 2 weeks and things were getting worse. So I agreed to come back. I went home for a couple of days, packed up some things that I thought I would need for a week. Well, maybe 5 to 7 days. I'll give them here, and you can do some massage and it'll all be okay, and I can get on with my life again. And I moved into the house for what I thought would be 7 days. It ended up being a bit longer than that. 10 weeks actually in total. I'm sure I could have stayed a lot longer because I'm still coming back twice a week for at least the last 2-3 months now, to continue to do more physio. But it was 10 weeks. So this journey has continued to exceed my expectations, which is a good thing. But my 10 weeks here, and I'll talk about that in a bit, my 10 weeks here were literally life-changing for me. I'm sitting here today doing my very first video interview for you because it's that important to me to let people know and to let you know just how transformative my experience at Living with the Spirit has been for me.
All right, so final day. It's nice to have you here for a while. And quite a story with the injury you had.
Yeah.
So when I saw the X-ray first, I think it was on Facebook or someone sent me an email, and I'm always curious, coming as a personal trainer, massage therapist. Always curious to get complex cases, and I went like, oh wow, this looks like something I can really experiment with and find a lot of ways of improving mobility, circulation. But I was guessing there was also a lot of emotional components as well to it. Just like you said, you feel very independent, and to start trusting a limb after an injury like that can be somewhat challenging sometimes and complex. So I was already, as soon as I saw you went into the injury, before Michael even mentioned it, I was already going like, oh, how could I work with this? Can I go about it to make it better somehow? So I think a big part of the plan was really to have a window of you exploring and feeling safe in doing that, just as you mentioned, and you feel quite vulnerable with an injury like this, and going to a lot of different medical instances and getting different accounts for what has happened and what's the way forward. Yeah, I wanted to create an explorative and safe space more to go forward. So it was traditional physiotherapy, definitely, but I think a big part of it was also just to get the mobility going, like getting some faith back in. Okay, you still have a leg, because it felt a little bit disconnected at the time. And yeah, to integrate a limb is not only to do it physically, as you know by now. It's also about trusting that it's still there, because it can be affected by the accident, and you can feel almost like, oof, I don't want to know of this. I just want my life to continue. And I think that's kind of what I recall as you were telling me. You were waking up in the night and you didn't really know if it's going to be there next morning. It was going black as soon as you were sitting down. I think a big part of it first was just to get the circulation going, get some gentle moving, then adding a little bit of load so you can trust the limb, and gradually walking forward, literally, actually, step by step. What did you feel was the most challenging, would you say, from the whole experience?
I think after I'd had a period of any progress, if the progress stopped. So physically, mentally, and emotionally, it was really difficult when I hit those spots, because it almost felt like the progress that I'd just had hadn't happened. And I went right back into how much fear I was in, how much trauma I was in before things started to really heal. And I don't think I'd really fully, like most of my experience of this accident, it's so new to me. So hearing about it and hearing about somebody else having it isn't the same as having it, like you described. It felt like from the knee down, this wasn't part of me anymore. I touched it because I needed to clean wounds, but that was the only reason I had any attention on my leg. It's like it wasn't really there. It was such a cut off, injured part of me, and I didn't know what to do. So when there was progress, I could feel energized, I could feel hopeful, I could start imagining getting the dogs back again, walking again. So it's like I can be quite an optimistic person, so there was optimism again, and I'm planning things and talking about where I'm going to go and how I'm going to be and the work I'm going to do, starting to look online at what's possible for me. So every time there was a small setback, and we're talking about maybe a little slip or bump in my leg, or not even a setback, just not seeing progress incrementally day after day, that was huge for me. And when the mobility actually started, and when you had me do some more exercises to see how limited I really was, that was a shock. I would always be very fit. I did a lot of physical activities. I climbed mountains. I do climbing. I do a lot of hiking. So I'm very active. And to find that I couldn't trust my leg to put my weight on it, even using crutches, that I couldn't push little amounts of weight, that I couldn't bend my ankle, just the most simplest of things, to see that I couldn't do that. That was scary.
Mm.
Yeah, I think that was the hardest bit.
And I really recall what you said about when you were at the hospital and you were still working. You kind of had a hospital close to your work, and you said, it's like I'm not living in the same space as other people. They talk about general things, and I have to be, every breath, every pace, I have to be 100% aware of how I'm placing my foot, because it can be detrimental to my health.
Mm.
Do you feel that you still have some of that awareness with you, or was that something that just came with the injury, or has it shifted your perception of thoughts or awareness in general?
Yeah, I like that question, because until this has happened, I wouldn't have understood that there's a different kind of awareness. I did in theory, but I didn't in the experience of it. So before my time here, I'm becoming safe in my own body and safe with trusting what I could do and understanding limitations as well, and trusting that that's the limitation of the time I'm in. And that doesn't mean that's life limiting. It's just right now I'm going as far as I can. It changed my understanding of the awareness. So I think the awareness up to that point was very acute and very much more hypervigilant. So it's very much more threat based.
Yeah.
I can't let anything happen here. Now the awareness is very much about being mindful and present. So I'm aware of what I can do. I'm aware that when there's some pain or pressure, what's expected, what I need to do, what's okay, according to yourselves and the surgeon, with where I'm at in my recovery. And if it's more than that, then I also know that I'm doing too much, and I can take it as a cue to stop. So it's a very different awareness. It's almost like a safety awareness now, rather than a threat awareness, if I'm describing that well. It's exactly the same level of attention, but in such a different way. It's integrated into how I'm feeling, and I'm using it to cue me to what to do in a more functional way, rather than to alert me to threat and danger and to start panicking. So it's definitely shifted, but it's certainly part of how I'm seeing things now. I do like it, actually, believe it or not. I like that I have a keener sense of what's going on in my own body, and I can take cues from it.
Yeah, I mean, and also that we discussed a lot during the sessions. I mean, working with clients, and you having vast knowledge of trauma and psychology in general. I felt it was always interesting because you had words for all the experiences you had, and yet some might have been maybe new levels or just new nuances, just as you explained, like, wow, that's a whole new awareness of how am I taking a step, how I'm moving my limbs, where am I at. And I believe a lot of what happens with injuries, if you look at it from a holistic perspective, is that we become a little bit more aware. It can happen, maybe not to slow us down, but it can happen just as a mirroring aspect of where we're at in life. Just like you said, it gives me cue if I'm too stressed out some days. Maybe, what's the cue? What will the cue be for you to feel if you're doing too much? Is it swelling, or is it pain, or?
It can be a number of things. So definitely the swelling. I can feel the swelling starting to happen before I can see it in my foot. So I already know what that feels like. And once I feel that, I know, okay, so this is too much, where my foot's down and walking about. A lot of the time I'm just going to ignore it and go on, because I like to think, well, I'm not in pain, so I can say, I'll push the limit a bit. But I understand I'm doing it. The next cue would be there is some pain. The pain shifts. It depends what I'm doing. So if I'm walking, there's a certain type of pain on the ankle. If I'm trying to carry something using the cane that I'm still using for support, which is amazing that I'm off crutches.
Yeah.
I don't know, 5 months on crutches. That's, well, 4. The first month I couldn't get out of the bed.
Yeah, that's true.
But 4 months after that on crutches, they're gone. And I'm just using the coolest cane you can ever get to help me balance and take some of the weight. But even at that, when I'm trying to carry something that's quite heavy, which I've been doing recently, I can really feel that the pain is through my ankle. It's up my leg where I can feel the rods. So I can actually feel the rods in my leg through the bones. And when that starts to ache to the point of pain, then I know this is too much, and the doctor has given me good advice based on the x-rays and the recovery of the bone repaired this far. His advice makes sense, so I know not to, okay, I might want to push it and prove that I'm strong, but I'm not proving that I'm strong pushing it any further. I'm proving that I'm being a bit ridiculous and yeah, blind and short-sighted, and I'm choosing not to pay attention to really good advice. So it doesn't make sense to do that, and it gets me to stop.
Yeah, but that makes sense. Just like you said, it gives you cues, and that's what I like about the holistic aspect of healing, of that you can see an injury integrates into your personality and traits and behaviors. I was curious, how did you feel about the food transition? You were already on vegan food before you came here,
Yeah.
but here was mostly raw food and a lot of fruits.
Yeah.
Was that a hard transition, or?
In some ways,
Yeah.
the first 10 days here, I gotta tell you guys, it was pretty horrific. Not being here, just the detox from all the stuff. I was still on a lot of pain medication, opiate medication from the hospital. I was taking benzodiazepine to help me sleep. I really didn't want to let that go because the sleep, it wasn't a particularly restful sleep, but at least I wasn't here anymore, so I could just switch off. I had a lot of that, drinking a lot of coffee from age 14, so that had always been going on. And as much as I would like to say I'd remained vegan, I was more on the vegetarian side because I was taking a lot of dairy at that point, because I was told I need dairy um, for the regrowth of the calcium for the bones. So a lot of dairy. I don't even eat that much. So I didn't feel particularly healthy when I came. The first 10 days was detox from all of that, which was pretty tough, but I understood what I was choosing to do. I mean, it wasn't put on me. It was very clear I could have a choice. There are other people in the house that were having cooked food and, you know, just eating some of the stuff that I would eat anyway when I was here. But I thought, I'm here to get well. I'm here to transform what's happening. This is all on offer where I'm at. It doesn't make any sense not to just go with the full package. So I did that, and I really enjoyed it. Nucci and Nana are wonderful. You can hear them in the kitchen from early in the morning, just preparing all the foods. The raw foods were really surprising. I mean, they're so versatile. There's so many options. I thought it was going to be lettuce leaves and a couple of tomatoes and a bit of cucumber. But it was just, it looked so pretty, very colorful, lots of flavors. Sarah knows I love my spice, so there was always chili on the go. And really, yeah, really enjoyed it. And I loved the feeling after my second week here of my clear head. My sleep was getting better. I had Lucky come in and cuddle up beside me on my leg, which really had some comfort when I was sleeping as well. And the raw food just fitted with the environment. You made it very easy for it to be just the thing to do here. So yeah, it worked for me.
What did you feel was the most beneficial with the sessions? The plan that we had was, as I said, it was to create a window so you can feel a safe space to grow and explore the new sensations coming up in the leg, because part being physical and emotional as well, and coming from a hypervigilant state to relaxing in. Was it something that you felt was helping in different ways? I know we did massage, we did a lot of osteopathic soft manipulations techniques just to get the joints working, and then a lot of corrective exercises, which is like a mix of physiotherapy and personal training and just gradually scaling up. Was it something that you preferred more or less? I remember you even got to try Reiki a little bit and energy healing. And did you have a favorite and a dislike?
Yeah, not so much a dislike. I struggled with Reiki.
Mm.
I really struggled with that, and it was emotional struggle. And I could feel myself panicking and wanting to jump off the table, which is quite a surprise to me and a shock. And I didn't want to do it because of what it would look like and what it would say about me, having to jump off the table when I was getting Reiki. So I had a lot of stuff going on in my head about that. But still, the sensation of panic kept coming up for me when I was doing that. So more to explore there, I guess. And that's the only reason why it wasn't going to be something that I would put my hand up first thing in the morning and go, yeah, me, that's the one I want. Because I don't like feeling exposed. I don't like feeling vulnerable. And I didn't understand it. So it's more to figure out. I love TRE, as you know. I really love the experience. I've done it before, so my experience here was so different because of what's happened since. Prior to the injury, the TRA we did, I enjoyed the tremoring and the experience of being in it. Post this injury, it's been a very different experience, which again has been something that I don't understand, but also want to explore further. But it also tells me that my body's responding in a different way because something different's happening with it. So I trust it even more because of that. The manipulation of all the bits and pieces, the bones and the structure in my foot and my leg, really useful. Sometimes that's exactly what's needed. I like the exercises. I like the getting the flexibility and seeing that things are moving along. So being able to push my foot down on one of the blocks with the magic tape on it to help me, I really like that because it looks like it's not going to move, and then by the time we're finished doing some minutes of that, I can really bend the ankle up. And as much as it's uncomfortable, and I know it's taken a lot to do it, I can see it happening, so I know it's possible. So that gave me a lot of hope.
So, how have you felt your progress transitioning of coming in from the first session when your foot was black and you barely wanted to touch it to now walking around with the coolest cane in town and like being able to walk your dogs and kind of more or less going about life in somewhat ordinary fashion?
You kind of said it there, really.
Yeah.
It's when I came in, I had 2 crutches. My foot was still sort of suspended midair. I wouldn't put it on the ground. I didn't trust it to even touch the ground, let alone put any weight on it. Still bandaged, still had open wounds. I had my little bag of stuff with me that I had to clean the wounds twice a day and keep wrapping them up again. I felt hopeless, and I was really, as much as I like to be optimistic, I was really just waiting for the next visit to the hospital where the doctor was going to tell me this is not going to repair. So that was the first few days, and I'm sitting in someone else's home, being looked after almost entirely by other people, and feeling hopeless. So that was the start of the journey here. As you can see, the wounds have completely healed. They healed within 2 weeks once I started the detox. When the detox came to an end, about a couple of days after that, the wounds had closed. I mean, that was huge. Yeah, so the wounds healed pretty much straight away when it got through the detox. I started using some of those oils that you recommended, so frankincense and helichrysum. Thought I'll try anything at this point. Things are starting to look different. And I've been using that daily now, and you can see, I mean, the difference. If you've got pictures of them before, but they were quite ugly open wounds, and now they look years old.
Yeah.
And it's only been 7 months?
Yes.
Since the day of the crash, so that's quite phenomenal. I got home after the 10 weeks here. Another 6 weeks later, I took my dogs back from the kennels. I've just been so happy. I've been able to walk them, not very far, not very fast, and sometimes they're a little bit rowdy, but I'm able to walk them, take care of them, do things for myself. I'm driving again. Automatic cars are the best because this is my left leg. I don't have to use it, so I just set it on a cushion with an ice pack on it when I'm driving long distances, and I'm driving around. So I've got a lot of my independence back again. I feel mentally clearer, emotionally much more grounded than I ever was before the accident. Much more in tune with what I want for my physical self and for me. And it really has shifted my perspective. So I would say from the day I walked in here to today, I don't feel like the same person. All right. So to sum up, the place is amazing. It's really safe. We did create a safe container for me to start feeling safe again inside my own body and explore just what had happened, to process it. It's a big thing, and I didn't really, I severely underestimated just how big it was going to be. Had some pretty wonderful chats with Sarah about life, love, happiness, idiots, and the like. Enjoyed that thoroughly. Nana and Nucci are just the most beautiful girls. They take care of everything. Everybody's staying in the house, all the clients coming in and out. Their food's amazing. Lucky the cat is, she filled in for the dogs when I didn't have them, so I really appreciate having her here. And just having the time to feel that it was going to be okay and the reassurance. One thing though, Simba, you really need to work on your jokes. Just, you are so not funny, and I know you think you are, but you really aren't. And I think for kindness' sake, I need to let you know that.
I appreciate that very much. That's funny, and thank you for teaching me so many Irish precious words. I will cherish them forever.
You're not going to say them on camera, though.
Most likely
No,
not.
no.
All right. Well, thank you for being here. We really enjoyed it, and yeah, we learned a lot from this experience as well. It's been mutual, and I always feel that way working with people that, sure, I bring something to the table, but equal, I learn something whenever working with someone. And yeah, it's really been an honor working with you. I'm really happy to have had you.
Thank you.
Thank you.